All right, thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I want to take about 5 to 7 minutes and see if I can give a little bit of valuable information. I recognize that years ago as a small business owner, I didn't have a lot of places to go to get up-to-date information. And when I say up-to-date, this is as up-to-date as I know it to be. And the data will be changing as soon as our elected representatives get their head out of their proverbial tails and pass some legislation, which has been delayed a couple of days, but everyone seems to think that it is going to be passed in short order. So I'm going to give you two different scenarios of what I know. And again, let me keep emphasizing, you're going to hear me say it 3 or 4 times, check with trusted advisors and consultants. I only give you this as a starting point so that you can start to ask questions and be somewhat up to date. But basically, there's 2 different places that it looks like there's going to be assistance for small businesses. And I want to talk about both of them. The first one is in play really right now in every state in the United States and in most counties, but not every county. So that's the federal relief program called the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, EIDL, from the SBA. And a couple of real quick little points. We're going to send out a deck shortly to every member that'll have all kind of this information. So I'm going to summarize it. I'm going to go quickly. Basically, every state has already been approved. Most counties. If your county's not approved, don't give up. Pick up the phone and call your representative and raise holy hell, and have other business owners that have everybody in your network and action group do the same thing, because we're all being affected by this economically, most everyone. Small businesses and private nonprofits are available for the loans. The criteria very quickly is obviously ability to repay, credit history. You have to have a physical presence in that county. Can't be a P.O. box. So you have to be physically located in that county. The interest rate's 3.75% for businesses and 2.75% for nonprofit. And typically those are 30-year loans. It can be used for any type of debt, payroll, accounts payable. Really, you can use it for whatever you want. If you borrow more than $25,000, some type of collateral is going to be expected. You can borrow less than $25,000. And you're going to apply for that through the disasterloan.sba.gov. Keep in mind 2 things that seems to be apparent today. They are not going to allow you to double dip. So if you go for the other loan I'm about to talk about, you probably won't be able to get this loan. This loan is going to take longer to get. I mean, they're talking about, best case scenario, probably 45 to 60 days, but you should expect closer to 90 days to fund. It's more paperwork. It's more difficult to attain. And it's typically can be for larger amounts. So just remember that. You really need to figure out your strategy before you jump in. That is the small business relief, or better referred to as the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Okay, and there's lots of money been appropriated for that, and that is available to you. And so 2 things I say in my tips for later today is, don't assume you don't fit the criteria. That was a mistake I made years ago, and I waited. Luckily, we had a flood come through a property I own and washed a bunch of cabins down the river and a couple of longhorns with it. And I kept thinking for a few weeks, I wouldn't get that loan. I wouldn't get that loan. I didn't have enough damage. And finally, someone's a lot smarter than me said, "You're crazy, There's a story in Texas. There's a water park in Central Texas that just waits for these floods. They get the government's money and they rebuild, and they build more and more slides. So they've been doing it for 35 years. So this is very affordable money. And, you're an American citizen. And if you've suffered a loss, then you ought to apply for it. So that's the SBA loan. The second deal that they're fighting about right now, and will be passed at some point, I'm told by everybody that I've talked to, and I've called a bunch of people that, that I know, it seems like that they're just hung up on adding items to it, wind farms and all kind of crazy stuff. But right now it's called the CARE Act, C-A-R-E, and you've probably heard about it because there's rumors that they're going to mail everyone a check for $1,200, plus a little bit more if you have kids. So I'll really clean up. But bottom line is the CARE Act also has a provision in it, once passed, I want to keep emphasizing that, where it looks like you'll be able to get relief for 2.5 times your monthly payroll. And so what you need to know here is, if you have a monthly payroll The stigma is that you won't be able to lay off those employees. So the money is supposed to be set aside to keep employment lower, and you're supposed to keep your employees. 2.5 times your monthly payroll is what they're talking about. This program is expected to be applied for through your banker. They don't know that for sure, but it looks like they were trying to structure where you would just go down to your banker. You would take a little bit of documentation, your information on your company, your accounting, up-to-date accounting, and you would take copies of your payroll. I think it's the average over the last 12 months, and you'll get 2.5 times. And that's expected to be funded, complete and funded in 7 to 9 days. But I keep wanting to emphasize, this is only the data that I have as of today. I'm not an expert. I'm just trying to give you information, and make sure you check with trusted advisors before you move forward, and make sure that you strategize on what's the best program for you, because it does not look like you'll be able to start a double dip. Let's just open it up for questions just for a couple of minutes, Daniello, and I'm not sure that I'll be able to answer them, but I can take the questions and try to go get the answers. As I mentioned, I'm a franchisor trying to help small businesses. I'm not an expert in this field. Do you have any questions or comments? Okay, Eugene, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, I would like to introduce my good buddy who's a Network in Action member in Atlanta, Georgia, part of Steve Gard's Buckhead group. Eugene, I've had an occasion to spend some time together in the past, and I reached out to him and asked him if he could help us with prospecting during these difficult times. So I'm going to turn it over to Eugene. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And I wish it was under better conditions and circumstances, everybody, but hey, we are in this world right now, right? As we enter in this new world, there's a lot of stuff that we know and a lot of stuff that we don't know. And what we don't know is how long it's going to last. What we don't know is what are going to be the changes in business practices and prospecting practices moving forward. What we do know is there's going to be some changes. And what we do know right now, everything has changed for us. So what I've done with a couple of other Sandler trainers across the mid-Atlantic is we started putting together some information. So what you're about to see is kind of the beginning of that, to try to help people understand, what does this new world look like? What does it look like in a social distancing world? I don't know if you guys are finding this with businesses you're interacting with. A lot of them are enacting social distance policies. For example, I have a corporate account, as I was talking about earlier at the beginning of the call, that I go to them once a week. Well, their social distance policies changed all that. So now we do a Zoom meeting once a week versus having in-person meetings. So there's a lot of changes that have happened, that are going to happen. And, quite honestly, we don't know what is going to be the final outcome. We do know we're going to get through this. We just don't know what changes and what lasting changes will happen. So what I'm going to present to you today is kind of help you walk through this. What does prospecting look like right now? Should I even prospect? What you have on the screen now in front of you is the Sandler selling system. So if you're familiar with it, it's a 7-step process. It starts with bonding rapport, learning about your prospect. I'm going to bring that up in this conversation as we get into it. And then upfront contracts, that's the agenda. And then you get into pain conversations, which is what you can do to help solve their problem. What is their pain, and can you solve it? Can you cure their pain? And then budget decision steps, or qualification steps, and then fulfillment, what you can do, and it ends with post-sale. What I'm going to talk today about is really prospecting. What does it look like right now? Where should we go? What should we step forward with? What should we not do? So here's the outline that we're going to talk today. And again, at the end of this, I'll open it up for some questions, because there are a lot of questions. I'll answer to the best of my ability. A lot of it's going to be anecdotal from prospects that I've spoken with over the last week and a half, and also Sandler trainers that I've had conversations with. We're all pooling this information together to try to really figure out, what does it look like? One of the questions that comes up, is it okay to prospect during this time? And if it is, how can we effectively engage prospects? What does that look like? And how do we respect them and what they're going through as well? Because we're going through it as well as they are. And then how do we maximize that productivity during the social distancing? Because it's here for now. Again, we don't know how long. If you guys were like me over the weekend and watched the news, I mean, it was pretty bleak. I was like, I should not have watched the news. I wish I didn't. I left that day. I sat one Sunday and just consumed news, and it just, it just deflated me. So I think part of it is our head trash and where we're at. Where's our attitude? We're going to talk about that too. So is it okay to prospect during this time? So let me ask you guys this. That's the question. And before this all happened, was it unethical to sell to somebody something they didn't need? Well, the answer to that to a lot of people is yes. If you were selling something that they didn't need, then the chances of it being returned was greater, and you're not really helping the prospect, you're helping yourself out. The other question is it unethical to not sell to someone who you have something they need where you could fix a problem? Because what you do in business, and this everybody on this call, if you're in business, you have a product or service that helps people. And it helps people in a way that where they're going to exchange some services with you in the form of money. So everything that we do it to help people. And if we do it well, we help a lot of people. So again, the two questions before this all happened: was it ethical to try to sell somebody something they didn't need? Is it unethical to sell somebody to not sell something that they need and it can help? So what about now? What's the difference? There is no difference. After all of this happened, it is still, in my opinion, unethical to sell something to somebody they don't need. Our role as salespeople, again, it's my opinion, is we help. Our product and services help people. And if we're trying to sell product or services that don't help people, there's not a need, and we're just selling to sell, we're not really helping. And is it unethical to not sell something, to not get in front of that prospect, to talk to them about something that you have, a service or product that you have that can help them? So the questions are the same as well as the answers. So what has changed? Well, lots changed. It's amazing in such a short time. This conversation, if Scott and I were to have this conversation about doing this meeting 2 weeks ago, it would be an entire different conversation than it was when we entered into this talk to do this. So a lot has changed in a very short amount of time. People are more distracted now. I don't know about you, but I can tell you for me, the days are flying by. There seems to be so much compacted in that you've got to get in front of and you've got to do. And most of us have our children home, so we're homeschooling right now. And most of us never done that before. So there's another added responsibility in your everyday activities. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of uncertainty out there right now. I heard reports over the weekend that said this can go on from 3 to 6 to 9 months, or from longer than that. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear this can go on for 3 to 6 or 9 days. But I didn't hear that. I heard 3, 6, 9 months that this can continue to go on. So there's a lot of uncertainty, which creates a lot of fear. And then we're focused on fewer and fewer immediate problems because things are so maxed out. We got so much coming at us right now that it's overwhelming. And then new patterns are changing. What we're doing right now is a new pattern, whereas before maybe you can hold a networking group. I know we're across the country, different states, but this is a networking group. If you can't meet right now, and even if you agreed to meet and nothing happened, the look of it in the public's eyes right now it's right. What are these people doing gathering together? They're putting everybody's health at risk, regardless if you're healthy or not. So networking groups around the country, this is where a lot of changes happen. And then, of course, I don't know about you, but I never heard the phrase social distancing policy until just a number of weeks ago. Never heard that coming out of the corporate world. And now I'm dealing with social distance policies with clients, and how do you work within that? And the key, the change to how we are and how we interact with people that we call on, prospects, anybody really, could be people that provide services if we go to the grocery store. And empathy right now is a huge point, a huge, huge key to all this, to be empathetic, thoughtful, helpful, and to be authentic. If you're prospecting right now, empathy, thoughtfulness, helpfulness, and authenticity are the keys to having a meaningful conversation. The slide you have in front of you is the formula for success, according to Sandler. Now, David Sandler, who started Sandler Training, this is the gift that he's given all of us. And I have it behind me as well. It's behaviors plus attitudes plus techniques equals success in prospecting in the business world. The behaviors are, what are the behaviors? This is what I would have taught you prior to a couple of weeks ago. What are the behaviors you're doing every day to drive your business, whether it be cold calls, networking groups, email campaigns, whatever. What are these behaviors every day that you're doing? What is the attitude you have about yourself, the marketplace, people you work for, people you work with, but more importantly, the attitude about yourself? And then what are the techniques are you using? Whether it be a cold call process, what do those techniques look like? I would have given you a lot of scripts. I would have given you a lot of coaching on that. But now when I'm talking to clients and I'm using this behavior, attitude and, success, and technique success model, it's looking a little different. Under each triangle and above the attitude triangle, you'll see what's changed. The behaviors now, it's really about research, reaching out, and what's the routine. What I mean by that is I do cold calls. I've done them before this, and now I'll probably do a lot more, obviously. Well, now I'm reaching out to gather data. I'm not reaching out to try to get a meeting. I'm reaching out to find out and get a pulse of what's going on in the business community. I talk to business leaders all the time. And this last week and a half, I've learned 3 basic categories right now. It's tough out there, but we're going to win this. We're going to get through. We're going to be stronger as we come out. I've heard, it's tough out there, and we're going to batten down the hatches. We're going to protect what we already have. We don't want to lay people off, but it's looking that way. And then I've heard, it's tough out there, but we don't know what to do. We're not sure where we should turn. We're not sure what it even looks like. And what I'm doing is trying to get meaningful conversations with people to understand what their needs are. It may not turn into anything right now, but what I've done in the last week and a half is I've actually made more strategic partners doing cold calls, just having that empathetic mindset that, hey, what's it like in your world? It's tough in mine too. And instead of just focusing on, I got to make 20 cold calls today, I'm focusing on getting some research, reaching out to people, and continue a routine. What am I doing each day and at what time? What's my discipline? And then and the attitude piece, attitude is so important. We call it head trash in Sandler. The head trash is what holds salespeople back more often than not. But right now, it's you got to put things into context, even for your own head trash, because when you're talking to prospects, and if you're not attuned to what's going on right now out in the business community, you're going to come across as that typical canned salesperson, and you're not going to get a conversation. And you got to have the courage. You've got to say, look, is it my obligation to continue to sell? The answer is yes. It's my obligation to continue to have conversations with people because I can help them, especially now in this time of need. So my attitude is my product or services are more valuable than they ever were before. But my reality is I understand where people are. I understand the batten down the hatches part. I understand that money may be frozen right now. So I got to have a positive attitude about that as well. My own head trash could prevent me from doing any kind of cold calls. And we got to connect with people. So behaviors and attitude now has taken a different turn, at least it has for me, because now it's more on being empathetic, gathering information. Now, I still want to qualify and disqualify prospects to see if I can help them. And you know what? The ones that are battening down the hatches, that really have no resources right now, are worried about laying people off, if I continue to sell into that person, I'm going to lose credibility. But when that person's model or environment improves, I want to be there as a strategic partner. I want to build that relationship now, because when this all passes, and it will pass, I've now made a great partner. I'll share a story with a cold call I did yesterday. I had my list. I cold called this gentleman. I did my pitch, if you will, my pattern interrupts and all that. It's a lot different than it was 2 weeks ago. It's more empathetic. It's more gathering information. And one of my pattern interrupts, and what a pattern interrupt is when I do my greeting, I say something that really is not about the call itself. And my guess is you've not heard of my company, Sandler Training. And he says, yeah, I have. So now I got to explore a little deeper. Well, long story short, I engaged with this person last year on LinkedIn, and he even knew my name. And he was about to call me a couple of weeks ago to engage with me because he's now at that point where he can do some training, but now he can't. Now he's dead in the water because of what just recently happened. He's lost some clients, he's lost some contacts, and now it's a batten down the hatches. But him and I walked away from that call with a much deeper relationship that we had prior to that call. And now when everything comes back and the world gets back to normal, whatever it looks like, we're going to re-engage again. And then the techniques, your technique right now, it's got to be about sincerity, give them space, make it simple. So this is where, when we're talking with potential prospects and clients, we got to have a different approach right now. I called a cold call prospect, and first thing I said to him is, my empathy level is way up high. I want to apologize in advance because I'm probably going to mess this call up. And then we had a pretty meaningful conversation. So let's talk about ways to prosper from a safe distance. Obviously there's email, there's phone. What we're doing now, virtual meetings, I think is going to blow up. Social media, mail, and there may be others. There's Instagram and there's all this other kind of stuff. But here's what's going to be happening right now. You and everybody else is going to be doing emails, phone calls, virtual media. It's going to be inundated. So your goal right now is to get as good as you can at these prospecting avenues. There are a lot of people that are about to do a lot of cold calls that haven't done cold calls in years. And so there's a lot of people that are going to have a hard time with those cold calls. So you need to make sure that when you're doing these cold calls, that empathy, that compassion all comes through those calls so you can have those meaningful conversations. Otherwise, they're going to do what someone did to me last week because I totally screwed up a cold call and just hang up. And then what are those emails? We do an email. What are some of the do's and don'ts on the emails? Right now, there's a lot of us who have drip campaigns. I would highly encourage you to look into your drip campaigns and see if anything's going out that's a little tone deaf. I got an email from a friend. He sells these web services, which is vital right now. And the subject line said, Eugene, I thought you would find this interesting. And then the body of the email was just selling me features and benefits. I emailed him back and I said, Ian, I got to tell you, this is a little bit tone deaf because your topic line said, I thought you'd find this interesting, and all you did was sell me features and benefits. Let's have a conversation about this email. So look at your email campaigns. You gotta make sure they're personalized and they're very clear and they address what's going on. If you've recently gotten an email from me, I've addressed what's going on, and all I've asked for is, hey, I'm here to help. I didn't ask for anything. I didn't go for a hook. I didn't go for a pitch. I actually offered up some free services because right now, people are hurt and they're in need. So the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to send out my regular email campaign. I've suspended that. And now I'm just sending out emails that are compassionate and speak to what's going on in this environment and how I can help. So if you do have a drip, take a look at that and then look at the emails you're sending out and make sure that they're relevant to what's going on right now, and helpful is a key. And if you have an email sequence campaign, which I had, and what I did with that is I sent the first email, I didn't hear anything, a second, third, fourth. I'm changing that up as well too, because normal just doesn't apply anymore. Empathy applies. So don't gloss over what's going on. Don't make assumptions about anything, by the way. In the arena of selling, your arsenal is questions. You got to ask and want to ask a lot of questions, find out where they're at and how you can help them. Do not make it about you or your products. I saw an email from a friend of mine who is some kind of yacht club or boating club, And the email basically said, hey, since everybody's all tied up, you should come get out on a boat. Totally tone deaf email. And it really made you feel like, wow, does this person just not get what's going on in the world right now? So some phone prospecting do's and don'ts. Now, I love the technique of cold calls. I don't like cold calls, but that makes me normal. So if you don't like cold calls, it makes you normal. If you like cold calls, well, maybe we should have a conversation. But they're effective, and they can be effective. So there's a lot of do's and don'ts. So I mentioned earlier pattern interrupt. When you make a phone call, a cold call specifically, you want to do a pattern interrupt. A great pattern interrupt is, my guess is I caught you at a bad time. Because a pattern interrupt, what it does is it doesn't go right into the selling. It goes right into what, it gets their attention. And then we do something called a mini upfront contract where you're setting the agenda. My mini upfront contract, giving examples just so you know what this means, is let me take 30 seconds, tell you why I call. If you don't find value in those 30 seconds, we'll end the call. Fair? I've set the agenda. I've asked for permission. I've taken, actually, the call. I've given them power to say no. And then always I get people having conversations with me. And you want to tell third-party stories. You want to tell people about what's going on. Here's what we find in the marketplace. Here's what we've helped. Here are people that, have had this, and here's how we've helped. But you got to practice. That's what that experiment with different talk tracks bullet is. Practice, practice, practice. You don't want to sound like a typical salesperson. If you've got a current script that you've been using on calls, I would look at it and make sure it is in context to what's going on in the world today. If it is not, find some different talk tracks and practice some different scripts. And don't act as if it's business as usual. Address what's going on. Most of the people I'm calling right now, the first thing I have up is a wall. And in fact, not most, all of them. Everyone's suspect of who's calling in. And what I do with the pattern interrupt, my mini upfront contract, and then I go into stories about how I've talked to a lot of sales business people this week. Here's what I'm finding. How are you doing? I get conversations. And more importantly, I get meaningful conversations. And those meaningful conversations, because what I'm doing right now, understanding the marketplace, is I'm looking to see where they're at, if they are full steam ahead, or if they are battening down the hatches. But I'm also looking to get some strategic partners and also maybe get some referral partners. You can still do that. It is still viable in this environment right now. And don't assume your prospect has given up on solving the problem. They just may not have some resources right now. If you make a call and you have that kind of meaningful conversation where your product or services can help them, acknowledge that, and then set a time to talk with them down the road. When things get better, hey, why don't we go have a cup of coffee? And keep in contact. And the best way to keep in contact in that respect is ask that person, hey, is it okay if you and I can keep in contact? They'll go, yeah. Well, what does that look like in your mind? Oh, I don't know. Maybe once a month, we'll go have a cup of coffee. I thought that's great. Can we look at our calendars now and maybe put that on the calendar? Now I understand everything going on. It'll change, but I'd like to sit down and chat with you in different times. Have those kind of conversations, because you're going to find if you can get a meaningful conversation out of a cold call right now, you're going to get a lot of viable relationships that are going to help you in the future, if not right now. And don't collapse if you get negativity. That's head trash. You're going to get some people right now that are hurting, and they're going to lash out. You're going to get some people right now that aren't going to believe you're actually calling, but that's okay. That's all part of the process. You don't know what's going on in their world. What you want to do is take that and just go to the next one. So that's just head trash, thinking that negativity is going to drop you and stop you. It's going to happen. So social media do's and don'ts. And a lot of us are on social media now. You do want to personalize your message. You do want to continue to expand your network, especially right now. LinkedIn obviously is a fantastic source to do that. This is the time to expand your network, not pull back, not stop, because there are a lot of people out there that are hurting. And like I said, while you may not be able to help them right now, down the road, again, that down the road could be 30 days. We just don't know. Do produce helpful content. Whatever you're doing, make sure it's helpful and current to the situation at hand. And ask for help and offer the same. I am all offering up a lot of free content right now just to help people. Sandler Corporate is also offering a lot of free sessions online because these are very, very challenging times. And the worst thing that we can do is shut down and stop learning and stop trying and not offer help. The more help we offer, the more help we're going to get. And so don't make a connection and just send them a pitch. If you have a meaningful conversation, don't just pitch after that. Just connect. Don't sensationalize your outreach. Don't just blow it up and try to make everything about what you're doing and what you can do for them. It's really how you can help. I would really caution to send bulk emails, impersonal connections, requests, and all that. At this point in time, connection requests should be personalized and direct because you want to have a meaningful conversation for a meaningful relationship with that person. Because remember, everybody right now is switching over to calling, to emails, to social media. Our email boxes are already overflowing. So think about what's going to happen right now if you're not seeing it already. I know I am. People are going to go to the safe avenue, and that's email. We're going to get a lot of email. So if your email looks like everybody else's email, well, guess what they're going to do? They're going to put it in the trash. And again, don't be distracted by the negativity. It's a very trying time. Don't hold it against anybody if they are negative, or if somebody kind of lashes out because you're prospecting. You don't know what's going on in their world. They could be in a lot of pain in a lot of avenues that you just don't know about. So mail, this is an interesting one. CDC has said that the COVID-19 mail risk is very low, getting the infection through mail. They said it's very low. And mail is not something that is widely used anymore. So it also, you look at statistics, mail has a 90% open rate and has a higher personalization factor and method of communication. A handwritten note right now, or just a handwritten postcard, goes a long way to building credibility and getting somebody's attention. And mail is less likely to be intercepted. It's going right to the decision maker's desk. So mail is an avenue that I'm going to revisit because I haven't really done much with it. But now looking at this current environment, mail is a much more attractive avenue for prospecting right now. My recommendation, if you're going to send some mail, is to just do a postcard, handwritten, and if you can, make it a bright color. You send a neon green envelope or neon green postcard to somebody. Then when you call them up, you can actually use this to warm up the call and say, hey, I was just following up to see if you got that letter I sent you. It was the one in the neon green envelope. Even if they haven't gotten it, they're going to look around and they may open up and have a conversation with you. So revisit this if you're not using any kind of mail activity right now. If it's within your model, mail may be a better option now than it's ever been before. I just thought of this may be a boon to the post office right now. So prospecting mindset, I'll close it for open it up for some questions. So it is your moral obligation to continue to help prospect find ways to solve their problems. That's what we do. We help people. And it is our obligation to continue to help people. Selling drives economic progress. And right now, what's going on in the economy, what's going on not only in our nation, but it's worldwide. If we're not out there trying to help this right now, then we're part of the problem. I think it's so important that we continue. It's tough, don't get me wrong. I know it's tough. Selling is the most collaborative interaction between people. It's a lot of conversations. It's how people build relationships. It's how you learn new things. Selling is a great thing in the world. We should be proud if you're in the arena of selling, which everyone here is, you should be proud that you are. And salespeople are responsible for keeping others employed. And that's the part that is the hardest hit right now, is people are being furloughed. I have friends right now that are being furloughed out in the retail world because of just no business. And selling is a noble profession. And we need to recognize that and embrace that. What we do is we help people. And my prospects, as I said earlier, likely need me more now than they did before. So it's my job to have that conversation with them and bring them to that conclusion, help them understand that. And I'm a sales professional, an entrepreneur, and a business owner, and I must push ahead, not only for my family's benefit, but for society, for the economy. And look, I'm not a prophet, none of us are, but brighter days are ahead. We've been through a lot worse as a nation. We'll get through this, and we'll come out of this stronger than we went in. The big difference now between this pandemic and other major ones that have happened in the world in years past is now we've got internet, we got media. I mean, the amount of information we get is enough to make you just want to crawl up in bed and stay there all day. And I'll part with this quote before we open it up from Martin Luther. If I knew the world would end tomorrow, I would plant a tree. So I want to say again, thanks, Scott, for letting me come in here and rant on. But if you have some questions, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for any kind of questions as well.
Great job, Eugene.
Thank you.
Really valuable. Mike Alexander, our goal is to try and help as many people as possible. I can't read the rest of that, Daniela. Can you help me, or Eugene, can you see it?
No, I can't on my end.
One moment.
Okay, I've got it here.
Here it is.
Make phone calls and send postcards. Just checking in. Hope you're doing well. Sort of reinforcing what you're saying, Eugene.
Yeah.
Totally agree with it about being empathetic and really just checking on people and building relationships. Yesterday, ABM Insurance delivered 50 meals from Mom's Mill to people in Dickinson. That's another great time. I mean, you know, we've got a little time on our hands, and while we're trying to be respectful of the social distancing, you know, if there's things that you and your employees can do to get out and help. The food banks are really hurting. The blood banks are really hurting, and those are some places where we can help out. Let's see, we got a question here from Sharon, Denver business coach in Denver. Can you give some examples, Eugene, of the mini upfront contract at the beginning of a cold call?
Yeah. My mini upfront contract is pretty consistent, and I use this one pretty much exclusively because it works. And what I do, and before I get into that, let me tell you before what happens in a mini upfront contract, because it leads to it. First thing I do is, if I called you, it'd be something like this. Hi, Sharon, how you doing? Eugene Pope with Sandler Training. And I'd pause. I would stop. I wouldn't say a word. I would let that silence lay there because you're going to say something. Don't speak until they say something and acknowledge you. Because here's why. I one time was doing a cold call, and this guy was clicking away on his keyboard. And I go, hey, Bob, this is Eugene with Sandler Training. Click, 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 click. Pause. Click, slowed down. He goes, yeah, how you doing? And he's still clicking. And I go, you know, Bob, my guess is you've not heard of my company, Sandler Training. Clicking slowed down a little bit. And he goes, no, I don't think I did. Still clicking on the keyboard. And then I get my mini upfront contract, told him what I'm doing. And by the end of the call, clicking had totally stopped, and I got a meeting with the guy. So what I do is, hey, Bob, this is Eugene with Sandler Training. Pause, let them acknowledge. Then I do the pattern interrupt. And again, a very safe pattern interrupt is, my guess is I caught you at a bad time. They're going to say yes, no, or maybe. Then here's the mini upfront contract that I use pretty exclusively because it works. So let me take 30 seconds, tell you why I called. If you don't find value in those 30 seconds, we'll end the call. Fair? Now let me break that down. Let me take. I'm taking ownership. I own it now. Let me take 30 seconds. There's my contract. Tell you why I called. There's my contract. If you don't find value, now I'm giving the power back to you. We can end the call. Now we have shared power. I've never had anybody not accept that and say yes. So let me take 30 seconds, tell you why I called. If you don't find value in those 30 seconds, we'll end the call. Fair? Another nuance that I don't say, is that fair? Does that sound fair? I just say the word fair. Put a comment, fair. People like the word fair, and people are accepting of the word fair.
Awesome. Eugene, would you be willing to share the slide deck with me so that I can share with the people on the call today?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. We had a request to put up the first slide real quick. Yeah. That can be done.
Let me get out of this.
Any other comments or questions? Am I missing anybody here? Let's see. Let me go to the top here. We answer the first one.
So the person that asked for this slide deck, can give me a reason what you're interested in seeing this one again for?
So this was Oscar. This is the first slide.
Yep, this is the first one.
Awesome.
Yeah, we just missed the first one. I wanted to just kind of see
Okay.
what the 7 things on the wheel were.
Perfect. Thank you.
So, Christine, are you on still?
I'm here. I just was muted. What was your question?
This is a little different than you remember the
Yes.
7 steps.
Well-
Yeah, probably the submarine, right?
Yeah, the process is the same, but the icon is different.
Yeah. I just started using this week, so I was using the submarine up that, and then I saw this out of the corporate world, and I'm like, I like that. It looks good.
Yep.
I'm just checking comments. And so you'll share the slide deck and we'll share it with the rest of you after the call. At this point, I don't see any other questions or comments. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add? I'll tell you the funny part, when we started this, I think Network in Action might have been the first one out there putting Zoom meetings out there. I know you're getting 10 or 12 invitations a day to join different Zoom meetings for all types of different training. So I appreciate your time very much. I want to give you my cell phone number. It's 713-417-6152. I certainly know very little, but I'm here to talk. I'm here to listen, and I got plenty of time to research anything you need. Latest update on the CARE Act is they're supposedly within hours of passing it. We know how that works in our government today, but hopefully we'll see that relief. So I would encourage you to look at our email that's going to go out later today, which will have a deck from the SBA about how to apply for that loan, as well as some information about the CARE Act, which looks like it's going to be 2.5 times your payroll, much quicker, much faster to receive, less risk in terms of having to pay it back. So that's the information I have as of today. Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow. We got another great session at 1 o'clock Central Time. Eugene, I couldn't thank you enough. You were awesome. It was very good. I'm an old guy that's been eating what I kill for 35 years, and I never quit learning, and it's just great information right now. You know, the great gift in this, I said last Friday, is this. We know as salespeople that really empathy is the #1 thing we need to have, you know, the ability to listen. It's changed so much in the 35 years I've been selling. And if nothing else, this opportunity during the coronavirus is going to teach all of us how empathy never changes. It's just more important to teach us today. But when this is gone, being empathetic to where your customer is, where your prospect is, and how you need to approach them, it's just going to make all of our lives better and ourselves more successful. So thank you very much for taking the time. Eugene did a great job.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks you for inviting me. And if anybody wants to have a conversation, please feel free to give me a call. I'm here to help.
Thanks, Eugene, so much. Thank you all for your time. We'll hopefully see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye.